Okay, so the absolute legend I am joined by today is someone who has been incredibly talented and has basically been a very, very important figure in representing life and carrying on, second chances, and everything of this nature. And that is, of course, the wonderful Boman Irani, sir. So, Boman, sir, thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. And it's so wonderful to have you, Pacho, on Filme Shilmy. Thank you.
So wonderful to be back after we met last noon chai. It was so beautiful talking to you then, and I hope we have an even better conversation tonight.
I really do think we will because, it's interesting, Boman. So after watching the Mehta Boys, in my mind, I was thinking that father and offspring sort of relationship, you've definitely explored not only in film but on stage as well. But if we look at films that you've been a part of, let's just say Munna Bhai, Maine Gandhi Ko Nahi Mara, Veer Zara, even, you've always had this beautiful exploration of father and offspring. So I think given all these years of experiences and now you finally writing, acting and directing, producing Meta Boys, how much of this has been a culmination of your experiences?
Absolutely right. It has been a culmination of my experiences, not just as an actor, not just as an actor who's done a varied amount of characters who probably have been fathers, but also been builders and policemen and teachers and deans and doctors, and doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everyone's an individual, a different individual, an identity of his own. However, I think there are life's experiences also that come to the fore, which include cinematic experiences, uh, and and all those experiences have come together. Whether I was a waiter at the Taj, or whether I was a shopkeeper, or whether I was a photographer, and I've used every or a theater actor. I've used every single experience of my life to bring it to the fore for this thing. Even the other work that I do. I think photography has helped me immensely in understanding, of telling stories from a still photograph to a moving picture, and framing, lighting, texture, color. Um, it's all been a learning experience for me. Then, of course, sometimes contributing to other films through ideas and script or whatever. And then you realize you caught out because you've only written scenes sometimes. And now you got to write the whole film in an arc, and that's not very easy. So so my learning experience had to start from scratch in that sense. Life experiences, I learn along the way, but writing, you got to start from scratch. You don't know how to write. So you got to learn how to write. And I started learning how to write. Over the years, I have, what's it called? Uh, skill up. Somebody used the word skill up. The skill that I thought I knew, but no, I got caught out.
Hmm.
So I think that was the biggest learning in the making of the Mehta Boys, the writing experience. The direction becomes much easier once the writing is all in place. You have it there, you know exactly where the scene is going. What the purpose of the scene is, who wants what in the scene, where are we going with it, what's the conflict in it, is there a new piece of information, is there something that the audience wants to ask a question? Oh, hey, what did he say? Oh, I'll tell you later. It's all part of the writing technique. So the writing was the most difficult part in this journey.
I love the way you played on lighting. And if there is someone who I really deeply admire for their use of writing a filmmaker, it's Guru Dutt, which he did in Kagaz Ke Phool, because I love the way he really balanced the light and darkness. And I could see influences of light and dark very much here in this film. Where several points where Avinash's character is sort of understanding life and he's kind of coming to a sort of resolution. We can see that dark that contrast between the light and the dark. And like you mentioned about the lighting, I would love for you to expand on these technical points, because even your choosing of framing and I think where the character is seated, like there's another beautiful scene in the film where he's seated and his the wall paint is basically ripped or chipped, and you can see the redness behind it, and he's just sat there. It's such a beautiful frame that was. And I would love to know what has really what influenced actually your choice of technical aspects in this film in particular, and without it being gung ho about acha मैं artistically इसको पेश करता हूँ. It was very nuanced and subtle.
Glad, I'm glad. Because the moment you're starting doing that, you've taken your eye off the ball and you're saying, "Oh, let me impress people," and then that's the problem. Like there's a scene with Avinash, and I go to him and I take the phone from his hand and she said, "Dinner is served." He puts on the phone and looks up and says, "What the hell just happened?" And the script says that there he was, reduced to a boy once again. Okay. Now that gives you your cue. How do you reduce him and diminish him? And because the light switches are so important in this film, they become a motif in the film.
Hmm.
He switches off three lights on his face and diminish and puts him into darkness. Now, it's not in your face, it's not show-offy, but it just makes you feel. Looking at the look on Avinash's face, and what the hell just happened? I mean, come on, man, this guy is he's not allowing me to be a man. And then top it does, you know what I mean? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yes.
It's a simple thing. It's a simple thing. And technique. Oh God, I lost this light. Amazing. Yeah, that it's a simple thing, but you can tell the story through light. We used the light bulb as a very important little aspect of the film. Uh, when they're sitting in the night, um, without it being overt, he's sitting in the night on the balcony in the dark, and inside the house are candles, and you see, oh, it's so nice, it's so candlelit. And he says, it was feeling like a romance. The two
Hmm.
people were ready with some music and some bhajiyas and some warm bhajiyas in the rain. And so the thing is, you wrote that scene thinking, what will make that situation perfect for the old man and him to say, buddy, let's have a talk. So he talks about what his mother said about Sai Baba, and there we are. And he's gone and brought bhajiyas, and he's looking at those candles and saying, they're going to be buddies today. Well, not so fast, okay? And then they sit down, they're eating the bhajiyas, they're having a drink, and he's talking about life, and he's talking about the buildings, and then he talks about the battery, and then suddenly the conversation goes somewhere. And and that's what mood is. You create the mood only to destroy it. You cannot have a conflict without making something beautiful. You have to make something beautiful to make it come crumbling.
Hmm.
So that was the writing and hopefully the direction without showing off, without telling you exactly how to feel. Um, I'm a believer that the movie is not about the direct. The movie is not about the twists and turns in the story. The movie is about the characters. And if you're not listening to the characters and what they're feeling and what they want to say or what they're angry about, then the audience is not listening either to your movie. They're not listening to your technique. They're not listening to your lighting. They're not listening to your frames. I mean, some frames can be very nice and then say, oh, very good, very good. But then we're only here for the angst of the character and how he's feeling at that point in time. If you let go of the hand of the character at any point and grab the hand of a show-off director, I think we are in big trouble.
I think I would love to follow up with this because, like we were talking about your experiences, and like you mentioned about letting go of that character due to the ambition, or, I mean, for lack of better term, for an ego of a creative and for making impact rather than actually telling the story like with sincerity. Has there ever been a time in your career where you've had to let go of a character and that sort of a sur because there's been external pressures at play?
In the film, but definitely not. You have to listen to the character. You have to ask the boy. And it might sound a little cuckoo when I say this, but I talk to the characters. How angry are you? What would you like to do? Would you like to calm down or what do you want to have a drink? You want to go and bang, get violent? Is that what you want to do? Yeah. Are you going to get violent? Maybe not. Calm down then. So the moment you're talking to the characters, and that's how I talk to my characters. Even when I speak about myself, when I'm writing multiple characters, uh, you must respect that the movie is about the characters, not the actors. The movie is about the characters, not the director. The movie is about the characters, not the DOP who's trying to show you I can do some fanciful lighting.
Right. And I think over your career, and I think the Meta Boys, like I said, it's very minimalist in the sense of what it shows, but then also what it conveys and the messaging behind it too. I mean, we're talking about corporate pressures here, corporate politics, we're talking about dysfunctional family dynamics, of course, um, and trauma. There's so many different strands that you touch on without it being in your face. And I think for me, Boman Irani has always been that sense of hope. I think in all the films that you've played, and that you've done, sorry, even if it is slightly on an antagonistic shade, you've always represented a sense of hope in an otherwise really doom and gloom story. Like in Munna Bhai, for example, even though he was an antagonist, but there was still that sense of ummeed, and he still comes round in the end. So for you, hope, it seems to be a very integral part when you decide to now greenlight a project or even have been a part of projects before when you were approached for it. So am I correct in this judgment where you do look for hope in the stories that you choose to champion?
You see, especially the antagonist, when the antagonist is standing alone, say a Three Idiots, he's standing alone and the whole world is against him. Why do people like Virus so much? Not because he's quirky, because he saw the light. He may not change as a human being, but he understands that, maybe I was wrong. And the moment the lessons that Virus learns are the lessons that a naysaying audience learns. And everybody likes to give somebody a chance. Sudarja. And when they do that, audience feels very vindicated. And I was wondering why people like Virus so much. It's not because of the work or the performance. It's about the fact that Virus turns around and tells his grandson, "You want to be a footballer?" That's what made him the character that he was. Footballer banega, footballer banna. So you're right, but it doesn't mean that every character should change for the better and have hope. The character in Khosla Ka Ghosla, he's
Hmm.
just hoping for his son to come and sit around and have a meal with him, and his son is not coming, and he just doesn't change. किसी को पता नहीं होना चाहिए कि y'all, I got cheated. Okay, he's going to be the same guy. So some characters change, some characters don't. Uh, but in this particular film, I don't think the old man really changed. He just wanted to have a decent goodbye with his son before he said goodbye.
Hmm.
The last slide is his goodbye, and also to honor his wife. His wife wanted to. He said, "What'll I go and tell her when I go up?" I left without meeting him. That's why he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to America. And he said in the hospital sequence, if you remember that moment when he said,
Hmm.
"I- Shivani," and she doesn't, वो नहीं चाहती है कि मैं जाऊं. Actually, वो नहीं चाहता है. He wants to stay back. And this guy, नहीं नहीं आपका पासपोर्ट मिल गया. अरे बाबा सुन तो सही बुड्ढा क्या बोल रहा है. आपका पासपोर्ट मिल गया. That's not what he wants to hear. He wants to stay back because he cannot go and meet the old lady and tell her, I did not make friends with my son.
Hmm. And again, this approach is so natural. Like we've seen films when it's dysfunctional family relationships. Of course, there have been some very beautiful representations in Hindi cinema, of
Oh,
course. I do also feel that quite frequently filmmakers would opt for loud arguments, a very jarring background score just for shorthand for drama. Whereas I think the way you've naturally allowed yourself to do that was a very remarkable thing. But again, for you to not fall into that pressure of, number one, making the film commercially viable, and I use that in quotation marks because it's such a used word nowadays and used term nowadays, but to not make it commercially viable and to not be afraid of telling your story in a way that's already been told before. It must have, would you say that there was a sense of fear in you as well, somewhat as a filmmaker and as a producer and as a writer, to take that risk as well?
If I put in loud music and made it jarring, would it become commercially viable? It is the film that it is. It is the film that deserves that silence. It's the film that deserves when he comes home in the end. There's it's just a diminishing piano. And your heart is beating. What's he going to do? He's having a glass of water. What the hell is he doing now? And you're taking it and you're saying, okay, you can't have jarring music at that point in time. You can't. So I am very clear in my head of the tonality of the film. Very clear. Because then I'm not saying that, okay, make it less, and people will get another 100 crores for it. No, we're not. We're not. This is the film. That's the world. Stick with it. Be true to the world, the film that you intended to make. End of story. What do you say?
Hmm. And this is and the reason why I asked this question, I know it might sound like a very blasé and a very cliched question, but I think it definitely warrants a bit of a deeper understanding, because I feel for artists, especially, when, like yourself, for example, who is so known for playing realistic roles, and when you come from theatre, you've had some vast experience in theatre as well. So you know what the true meaning of art is, but especially in today's day and age of filmmaking, where aaj itna sab kuch instant ho raha hai. Everything is so instant. People want more of the masala and are very, some portions of the audiences are a bit more impatient, of giving art the time to actually flourish and actually enjoy and consume that. Has there ever been a time in your life where there's been a pressure of commerce, or there has been a pressure of trying to succumb to that? And how confident do you feel about becoming a filmmaker in today's day and age, when the landscape has completely changed in Hindi cinema and Indian cinema generally?
See, I'm going to make the kind of film that I like to make. I don't even know how to start answering this question because if you, I'm getting confused because uh, in a commercial film, I'm there. I've accepted the contract. I've been accepting the money for that film, and which means I will accept the tone of the film. I'm going to accept it and bring my best ability, but I'm going to surrender to the tone of the film. I have to accept that there are audiences that like that kind of film, and I also like that kind of film. I grew up on that kind of film, right?
Of course.
But when I make a film of this tone, then you're going to be true to this tone. That's it. So there's no confusion there as far as I'm concerned. And uh, if this film, if this film gets appreciation, um, I'll feel vindicated that we stuck to our. There was no way that I was not going to stick to my vision. I wouldn't have
Hmm.
made. I don't even know how to start telling you this. What's the point in making a film that you always wanted to make and then you make something else and you say, yeah, I compromised. No way.
Hmm. No, very rightly said. And I think also I'm very fascinated with and exploring this idea actually with you, because I feel like I love the fact that, number one, you were also writing the film, and then we also had a co-writer of the big Hollywood films like The Revenant and Birdman. And I think that two minds like that coming together was, number one, very, very unassuming and also very unexpected at the same time. And but when you actually think about it, and I was thinking about this because I feel what those two films did, especially in the Hollywood side, is that it had traditional aspects. It had traditional aspects mixed with almost contemporary times. And I think what the Mehta Boys does, it also again has that fusion of tradition versus modernity, and in somewhat a very sweet and थोड़ा सा एक टकरार होता है उस उसमें. And I feel the way actually, even though it was unassuming, but you seem to have a lot more in common when it comes to the traditional versus modernity side. So if you could please talk to me about the writing drawing room and how it was to sort of balance those aspects with each other.
So it was amazing. I met Alex, and I met a lot of writers to collaborate with me. Um, and then Alex comes along, and and he says, I said, "What, have you written anything? That's not important to me. I just want to think I got my story." And he got it immediately. And then he kind of pointed at a couple of flaws in the story. I said, okay, okay, that's great. And then he told me, I got this film. I mean, I said, I've done this film. It'll come. It's an art house film. It'll come and go. Okay, doesn't bother me. What's its name? I said, yeah, okay. And I want this guy. And somebody says, but he's got no titles to his name. I said, doesn't matter. He knows my film. He knows what we want to say. And then the deal fell through with him, and then he got an Oscar for that film that was going to come and go. And then I said, now I've lost a friend because he's going to get so busy that that's the end of it. Then we became friendlier and closer. And then he came to India. I called him for India for my Spiral Bound launch and my company launch. I said, come in, instead of throwing a party, instead of sending money on a party, why don't I fly this guy down, pay for his thing and do a workshop, a workshop. That will be of some value. And that was kind of the starting of Irani Movie Tone. And then we became closer friends. And then we went to the Udaipur and wrote 12 pages.
Wow.
He wrote 12 pages again. And then slowly, we started working on the script all over again. And then finally, I realized that it was all that he taught me brought in a story that could have been a slice of life film and made it into a real solid drama, because thematically we brought it together. And I will always be grateful to Alex for this, always.
Hmm. No, definitely. And I think on a final-ish note, Bowman sir, honestly, when it comes to your filmography, I can go on and on, but we don't have the time, unfortunately. But I will one day sit down to discuss more of your acting and that, because I mean, there's one scene that I quickly want to say though, is when before your daughter goes to America in the film, that dialogue you have with her and the way you're looking at Jize and you're associating with the memory with each of those things. Oh, my heart just I could not stop crying. It was such a beautiful scene, and I think it's a very big scene that I would love the viewers to definitely focus on when they watch the film. But on a final note, now that you have beautifully established your production house, so you've definitely very much won me over as a writer and as a director. I mean, acting तो obviously वो तो legend है ही आपका. But now I think going forward, what will be your ethos, your mantra in which you will maintain when choosing other projects now, not as an actor, but even as someone behind the camera as well? Because I know you said you want to do films that everyone wants to watch, but then how do you gauge that? Because what people like to watch is very subjective as well at the same time.
I think I should make a film that I would like to watch. And it doesn't matter, even if it's a little commercial, it's fine as long as it's got a certain ethos. This is very correctly said. A certain individuality that this could be made by me and no one else. Um, so that's one thought. I'll just tell you, since you were speaking so sweetly about the writing, that scene which you just mentioned,
Hmm.
the idea behind what Alex always teaches me and I teach back at Spiral Bound is always don't do the conventional, do something, take people by surprise. So when she walks into the room, he's typing. Why is he typing? And she's being insensitive. So we think he's throwing a tantrum. He's not. He's asked for just 10 minutes more. But she's being insensitive. He's saying, come on, we got to go to the airport. He's not saying it. But the subtext is, I'm uprooting this oak tree from its roots, which has been around for 71 years. And you're saying, hurry up. Who's being insensitive? Who's throwing a tantrum? You are, not me. And both have a point. Come on, man. Don't give her grief. She has a point. But then he's looking at his life. He's looking at the photo frames, which represent so much. He's looking at his bat and his cricket. And he asked in the previous scene, are they playing cricket? And then he goes and says, can we take all this with me? No. So just let me be for 10 minutes. I mean, so that's got to do with the writing.
Hmm.
You can act your ass off. If the writing's not good, it's not going to be good acting.
Right.
Some good writing.
Hmm. Right. And going back to the sort of stuff you said, I mean, yeah, commercialism is something which we all love. Of course we do.
Oh,
But what would you be okay, let's just say what would you say is something that you're really desperate, not desperate, but really eager, excited to sort of back or be a part of in terms of stories?
I tell you, Anuj, I really don't know. I really don't know what I'm excited about. I'm excited about writing a story that makes me feel 15 years younger while making it. That's exactly what. Let's feel young. Come on, let's do this. There's an excitement that I can't explain where it should come from. It can't come from a genre. It can only come from a film that explores human nature. And it could be a bank robbery. I don't care. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
Yeah, human interest stories. And I think that's what definitely people are really wanting for. And that's why films like Lapata Ladies, 12th Fail have done really well. It's because of the strong human
Very,
interest aspects,
very
you
much.
know? No, very, very, very well said. But look, Baman sir, thank you so much. Honestly, I would have gone on because it's always such a pleasure to just hear your insights and to really understand the artistic mind that you have. And I think we're so lucky that we've got artists like yourself with a wealth of experience that really connect us with the traditional aspects of the filmmaking, that are also eyeing and looking to change the new sort of age of Hindi cinema in that sense. So I'm really grateful and congratulations on Mehta Boys. It really is a beautiful, beautiful film.
Thank you so much, Anush. Lovely. We'll be seeing you sooner than we expect. Okay.
Oh, amazing. I'd love that, sir. It'll be wonderful. Chalo. Thank you, Baman, sir.
Malshum.
Definitely.
Okay.